Really, without further ado, from the further ado before, hashtag sales meetup, and let's give a warm round of applause to our panel tonight, and Joe who will be moderating. Give it up.
All right, thanks. So we're going to focus on channel sales for tonight, a little different for enterprise sales meetup. Most of the work that we do is around direct sales. So we figured we'd make start at the top. Just talk about channel sales, what it means for the panelists' respective businesses, and from there, drill a little bit more deeply. But I'm not important, you're important. So starting with you, Sue, if you want to introduce yourself, name, title, company, fun fact. That'd be great for the audience.
Excellent. Sorry, my label kept falling off, so I'll put another one on afterwards. I'm Fernand, and I'm with Cirrus Insight, and the VP of Channel Sales. So I can deal with our channel ecosystem, and that's how I'm managing the role that I have there. We do, just to give you an idea of what our app does, we're a Salesforce ISV, so we're an independent software vendor for Salesforce. So we take Salesforce and put it into people's inboxes. So Gmail is how we launch, but we do also support Office 365 and Outlook. An interesting fun fact is I joined the company last August, but I was one of the original users of the app. I found it, Java was previously at, we were a big Google Salesforce shop, and we were just not using it properly. So I have one of the very early reviews on the App Exchange too. It's great to show customers that and partners that, hey, not only I know what it's like, I've been there, and I know how transformational it can be. So looking forward to talking with anybody after as well.
Very good. Stefan?
Hey everybody, Stefan Deeren here. I oversee partnerships at Parsley. We're a SaaS platform that provides analytics to big media companies like NBC, Huffington Post, Wall Street Journal. Basically, we're the platform that journalists and editors are looking at to understand who's reading their articles and why. Our partnership ecosystem includes technology alliances as well as agency partners. So some of them are strategic, some of them are revenue generating, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Looking forward to this discussion.
Hey guys, I'm Scott Pollack. I'm Vice President of Business Development at WeWork. So WeWork is the space, community, and services that businesses from freelancers to small businesses to large enterprises need to kind of do what they love. And so, let's see, so fun fact, was it?
Yeah, fun fact.
I've attempted, somewhat unsuccessfully, to eat the world's largest hamburger.
Where is this going?
Back in the day, it was in Clearfield, Pennsylvania, and afterwards, over beers, I'll share the long story of how I found myself in Clearfield, Pennsylvania, twice.
So I'm Derek Webster, founder and CEO of CardFlight. We provide tools and technology that helps merchants accept credit card payments on iOS and Android-based devices. We're actually 100% in the channel, but 80% of our revenue comes from a product called Swipe Simple. We sell through a network of about 50 resellers, serve tens of thousands of merchants, but completely through a reseller channel. And then 20% of our business is selling tools to app developers that they incorporate in their own solutions and resell those to businesses as well for accepting credit card payments. Fun fact, when I founded the company in 2013, did not understand the sales channels, including the ones we sell into. And it was only through listening to prospective customers that we ended up going on this path. So I remember one day being in a meeting with a very large potential customer and having him talk about how our app was so great, and I just kind of let him run with it without correcting him that we actually only had developer tools, and he would have to build his own app. And then we later decided to build the stuff he assumed we already had.
Well, that's great. Let's pick up on that. A lot of our folks that are here today are CEOs of small businesses, either starting up or they're just experiencing sales for the first time. Some folks might not even know what channel sales is. If you want to start, maybe you, Derek, around what channel sales is, what it means to you, and how you're using it to drive your business.
Yeah, I mean, broadly, I think it's working with third parties to serve a different end user. And there's all sorts of different flavors and models, and each of us are serving totally different end users and through a totally different reseller channel, but in some cases, not even a reseller model. So, broadly speaking, a channel and channel sales is working with third parties to serve other entities. And I didn't fully understand the power of it until kind of getting further and further down the path with CardFlight. I think there's a huge bias in, especially with like technology trade press, within the VC community, within the tech crunches of the world, to assume you need to be 100% vertically integrated, you need to be your own brand, you need to control every aspect of it. And what I didn't fully understand is actually, in many cases, there's much, much larger ecosystems that are partner-centered, partner-driven, leveraging third parties. We're a 22-employee company, and our largest customer has 1,000 bank branches in the corner of Walmart in 17 states. There's just a lot of people that walk into Walmarts every single day and walk into the bank branch in the corner of Walmart looking for solutions. And so that's given us a huge amount of reach we would never be able to get to on our own.
Scott, you and I have talked in the past about how channel just gives you a bigger breadth of coverage than you might have in more traditional models. We've got a couple of successful stories, a couple of different places. Just there's no challenge, anything different to you.
Sure. So when I think about channel, I think about it's a path to get distribution to an audience you might not cover yourself, right? And using that term channel, it applies to sales, it applies to marketing. With marketing channels, you're thinking about I can buy AdWords, I can buy a billboard, I can do TV, I can do email marketing, etc. Those are all individual channels for marketing that get you access to an audience. Channels from a partnership or sales standpoint are pretty much the same. It's just you're leveraging oftentimes third parties that have access to a different audience than you do. And whether that's a kind of program, a channel sales program where you have, let's just say, a standard kind of partner, that you have a standard kind of program that gets them interested in offering your product to their audience, or you have more one-off distribution partners that are more bespoke in nature. I think all of those are kind of one and the same, that you are using the assets and resources and access of somebody else to get what you have in front of their customers.
Sue, I know you work with a lot of different kinds of channel
Yeah.
partners. So you went to Alphabet Soup really quickly.
Yeah.
You were talking about IVRs and bars. It'd be really helpful to hear from your standpoint within Serious Insights, how do you segment those different types
Sure.
of channel partners? How do you engage them differently than the others?
Yeah, so essentially for us being in the Salesforce ecosystem, it's a very big ecosystem, as you guys can probably manage. There's a lot of people on the App Exchange. So the partners that we do a lot of work with are mostly consulting partners, and they are not actually selling Salesforce even. So they're recommending when they move somebody to Salesforce, there's usually a stack of apps that they say, hey, you're going to want this for adoption, this for project management. So for us, it's getting that mind share so that we're the ones they recommend for adoption by putting them in the inbox and making it easy for the salespeople. So that's kind of one relationship. But we also have to have good relationships with Google, Microsoft, and also Salesforce themselves, because obviously our products, we only integrate with Salesforce right now, but from a perspective of Google and Microsoft, even though Microsoft has competing CRM, it's important for those resellers of Office 365 and the G Suite, as it's now renamed, are aware that they can take a company that's really using Salesforce quite extensively and integrate that into that when they move them in that direction. It's very important to make sure that that discussion kind of happens. So we need to make sure they're aware as well, and then they'll bundle it and they'll actually sell it. So it's kind of three different distinct channels. There's really our Salesforce ecosystem, which are referral, and we've got our Google and Microsoft, or G Suite and Microsoft partners, and then the technology relationships with Google, Salesforce, and Microsoft themselves. So kind of trying to, and it's different for each. It's, to be honest, the most impact we get is from our referral and our resale partners. We don't get Google and Microsoft and Salesforce are huge, so we don't necessarily get a lot of referrals from them. So we really got to work. The channel for us is about reach and really working the channel for awareness.
Now imagine in your referral channel, it's about maintaining preference. So how does a channel partner prefer you over a different solution that they might be able to sell? And then some of your more dedicated channel with bigger companies that might be more focused on education.
Yep.
Who are we? Why should we be considering us? Can you talk about how you split up your workday and how
Sure.
you manage those two?
I do most of my work, honestly, with the referral and the resale partners, because that's really where the sales are coming in. So, that's probably like 80% of my workflow, and then 20% is kind of keeping the relationships with the respective technology partners. One of the things that I think that, we were talking about this before, I think is huge and important is you gotta give them the technology, like we let them use our app free so that they can be really, not necessarily knowledgeable on it, but they like it. It's helping them with their day-to-day operations. And a lot of other companies don't do that. They'll, Salesforce themselves has kind of connectors for that, but you have to pay for it. So I think that's beneficial too. And then just kind of, arming them with bullet points on, here's where I should talk about Cirrus Insight. It has to be easy. I mean, they're focused on so many other things. They're focused on selling someone on moving to Salesforce. They're not going to spend a ton of time on talking about these other apps. So it's really just, here's the bullet points, and then here's how you engage Cirrus Insight. Because honestly, we'll do all the uplift. I mean, we'll go in, we'll do the demos, we'll do the deep dive with the clients. Another thing that I think is important too is make sure that you really know the technology that you're integrating to. Like a lot of the people on our team, on our customer success team and our tech support team are Salesforce certified admins. So we get a bit of street cred for people that are in the Salesforce ecosystem because they're like, okay, you understand how this works. And the same thing, you know, with Google and Microsoft, we're avid users of those platforms. So again, I think the understanding is people know that we know the technologies and we're, you know, making that commitment on that level too.
Derek, you mentioned something about not realizing the channel was right for your business until you found that. And Stefan, I know you as well. You've had a ton of experience in starting channel programs from scratch. I think that was the biggest question I got during the networking hour. Is channel right for us?
Yeah.
Is there a cheat sheet that folks should be thinking about?
That's a great question. Just out of curiosity, how many people here work for technology companies? All right, good. So kind of speaking the same language here. Yeah, I mean, so everyone talks about how they're a platform, like the end-all be-all technology product, but the reality is you're part of an ecosystem. So honestly, I think if you're the first partnership person at a tech company, you need to focus on helping your core sales team sell the core product. So making sure you have integrations in place to help them be successful, because your technology has to be compatible with, you know, what the customer's using if you're going to be successful. Through that process, you kind of start to learn where you're going to be successful selling directly versus what some of the channel opportunities might be. And that's, you know, when you can start to place your bets. But you know, ultimately, it really comes down from the top. You have to have clarity across the organization that we're going to focus on selling directly to this market, and then these other markets where there's some interest, it might be more effective to reach out to them via channels, and that's when you can start to formalize some of those alliances.
Any other thoughts about?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to start with who's your customer and what are like their needs, and then build your solution and craft your solution and your operational processes and everything around that in that order. And so for us, it was basically, you know, we had purely a solution focused on developers. We built some really interesting infrastructure for processing payments, which is super complicated, super regulated. We built a bunch of really tough things. But ultimately, it was having a handful of people that were looking for something more turnkey, and all we had to do was build an application layer on top of this infrastructure we already built. We started, it was like 1 or 2 calls that we heard, and it's kind of like, well, you're not our target customer, you don't hang out on Hacker News, you're not cool, whatever. And then we're like, okay, maybe, like, we've heard this a couple times, like, let's figure out what's going on here. And so I ran a structured process. So we had a hypothesis, like, there might be a segment here of the market interested in a solution like this, and went and talked to like 10 or 15, in our industry they're called ISOs, or independent sales organizations. These are the people that sell credit card processing in the US. And so I just went and talked to 10 or 15, like, what is your business? Who do you serve? What products do you serve them with? What do you offer for mobile today? Why did you pick that vendor? Like, what works about that? What doesn't? And this like story emerged that there's this like massive set of merchants asking for something like Square in sales conversations with these resellers every single day. There's no need to educate a prospective reseller that this market exists, that they should offer a solution. We just need to educate them on why we were better than the other alternatives available to that channel reseller. So that made it a lot easier for us, because ultimately we just have to displace other vendors selling into our channel ecosystem, and we're very fortunate that a lot of them don't really have very good solutions. They're companies that aren't mobile first, and so it's been a very easy threshold for us to clear. It still takes a ton of time. It's still enterprise sales for channel development, but I think ultimately just understanding your customer, your partner, what they need, and making sure that that's compatible. You know, what you're trying to deliver is compatible. That is the key, because there's lots of ways you can try to, you know, form partnerships that are in your best interest and don't solve a problem or pain point your partner has, and it's sure like those are destined to failure and be wasted time.
I think I echo that 100%. I've often said that, you know, business development, and I think channel is an element of that, is business development is a growth function, right? You can only really start looking at how can I have partners help sell my product, in the case of channel sales, after you've proved that your product has some value to their customers and to the partners, exactly what Derek said. And so the kind of stack ranking of functions, you need to have a good product. You need a product team to build that product in the tech universe. You need a sales team to validate that that product actually provides value to a customer. And then only then, I think, can you say to another prospective partner that we've validated that for you. And here is where your unique advantage comes into play. By offering our product, it opens up the door to incremental revenue or to reaching another customer, what have you. But that has to happen only after you've done that initial kind of groundwork of building the machine of your core business. And so direct sales, I think, is a pathway to help establish and validate that core machine and then expand with channel sales or other forms of partnership.
I think that's a really important point. I think both of you talked about how you reach out to prospective channel partners. And that's a big thing. Before you even get there, you need to figure out what you even want in the channel partner and how that makes sense. So, Stefan, if you have any examples of how you thought about who is a good channel partner for your business and what the coda for that looks like.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, again, first and foremost, you have to understand who you want to sell to directly and how to make that successful. Once you have a very clear understanding of that, then you can start to evaluate some of the other opportunities. And I think it ultimately just comes down to like efficiencies. Are the customer acquisition costs through the channel better than selling directly? So just as an example, we're headquartered in New York City here. Direct sales teams in New York are expensive. It makes sense when you're selling to the Huffington Posts and the NBCs of the world, but there's a lot of interest from our product, for our product from smaller media companies, and frankly, we can't reach them effectively through our direct channels, which is marketing, events, SDRs, sales. The economics just don't make sense. But those companies could benefit from our product, and thankfully there are partners out there that already have relationships with some of those types of companies, and we made a decision to focus on what we'd be good at with our direct sales team and partner with some other firms that can help us reach that kind of like more mid-tier type customer. Another example might be international. I think for a lot of SaaS companies, kind of along the way, you just kind of organically pick up customers overseas. I think when we did the math, it's like, well, all of a sudden we have like 15-20% of our customers abroad. We don't have any direct sellers abroad. But when you do the math, and, you really kind of drill down, it's like, okay, Europe has got all these different countries and they're all very particular. Maybe it makes more sense for us to partner with folks on the ground there that know the markets, already have the relationships, that can bring deals to us, than try to replicate our direct sales force over there. So that's how we approach it at Parsley.
So very much economics focused.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you gotta, with SaaS, you just gotta look at the numbers and figure out this is what it costs to get you an opportunity, and how many opportunities it takes to get a deal, and figure out whether it makes sense or not. Yeah.
Anyone have a great story about the first major channel partner recruitment win? When you made that decision to go into channel, what it took to get somebody on board your program? Sue, Scott?
I have a great failure story.
I think they would love it. I think they would love it.
You learn more from failures than you do from success.
I learned more from this failure than successes. And actually, it's in a similar industry to where Derek is now. So I used to work at American Express. I was there for about 8 years in a few different groups. First role I had there was in Open, which is the small business division, where we issued credit cards. So if you're a small business owner, you could go and apply online on open.com and get a credit card for all your expenses, or they send a lot of direct mail and emails, all the marketing channels we talked about. I was part of a group that was building out a distribution partnership team, where we would work with partners that would be our channel. So two types of partners. One were regional banks, so like Sovereign Bank, which is now Santander, is one good example, where the idea there was you could walk into a bank, and you're a small business, you're going there to open your checking account, the banker would be like, oh, while I'm opening this, by the way, would you like an American Express card for your business expenses? That was the notion behind it. And for them, they were giving us access to a customer in this mindset of, I'm thinking about my financials, perfect time to reach them, where we couldn't necessarily get somebody in that mindset through a postcard in the mail or email blast or what have you. That was kind of the value there. The other kind of partner in the same vein that we're working with were ISOs, were merchant acquirers. And as Derek mentioned before, these are companies that are, the days pre-Square, where the only way you got credit card processing So these were a lot of like local sales folks that would be like independent sales agents of some of the larger companies that would basically go to all the hardware stores in an area and sell them on their particular solution. And so these guys, by the way, you know, I went to a bunch of their conferences, and you know, they are absolute sharks. They do unbelievably well, and very unassuming folks. Oftentimes, I was talking to some folks, it was a husband and wife team. They were from South Carolina or somewhere, and just kind of very nonchalant, wearing some shorts, drinking a beer on the beach of the sales conference that we're at. And then they started talking about their helicopter. Like, these are folks that do very well, can sell the hell out of anything. So we were trying to basically enable them to get a couple $100 for every application, actually every card that they sold while they're selling merchant processing. Seems like a pretty straightforward, kind of similarly aligned mentality of, you're selling credit cards, here's a credit card for you, etc. It failed miserably because the incentive structure was so misaligned. So these folks that have helicopters and are private jets and all that, literally, you know, just folks that might not have had a high school education or making millions of dollars a year, the way they made that money was because they got a small fraction of every transaction that went through the credit card processing terminals that they sold to the clients. And it took years to build. They can do extremely well very passively. They called it residual income, or residuals is what they call it, and that was the passive income coming through. Where we were offering, you get $200, $250 for every credit card that you sold. Now what we learned, and it took longer than I like to admit, to realize where we were failing, where nothing was happening here, is because the idea of a couple $100 was a pittance relative to what they could make by establishing a relationship with a merchant. But we were part of the sales process, and all they wanted to do was close their core sale. And the very mention of anything other than that could just open up questions and throw it off. And they didn't even want to talk about credit cards because they were jeopardizing a much bigger potential pool. So it was an amazing realization about how the value of what you offer when you are going out and trying to sell through the channel has to be aligned with the value that your partner is going to get. Not just at a company level, because obviously the company that employed all these sales agents or kind of had them as their independent sales agents saw the value of this deal because they were getting cut. But the end salesperson didn't, and that's where it fell flat.
We don't have any customers with helicopters, but we do have one husband and wife team that bought his and her Corvettes when they sold off a portfolio. So that is actually a very real example. But
maybe question my entire life.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to think through who is the frontline sales rep that's actually going to be having that conversation with the end user, and what is that person's incentives? Because if you are like the 10th most interesting thing they can offer, that's going to round to zero sell-through. And I think you really, there's kind of two ways to succeed in the channel. You either can somehow get your product turned on by default, where it's like just attached and it's not up to that end sales rep to make a decision or have to educate the merchant on why that upsell is worthwhile, or you need to be like one of the 3 or 4 most critical things in their bag or kit or whatever that they're out selling. So like we are very fortunate in that like we basically help our channel, the CISO channel, offer their alternative to Square, and there's just so much awareness of the capabilities of you can take payments on a smartphone now. You couldn't 10 years ago. That actually helps educate people on the kind of capabilities that there's enough, 15 to 30% of the new merchants our resellers are onboarding every month get our product, and it would be a much tougher way to build a business if we were only useful to like 2 or 3% of end merchants. I think it would probably round to like 0 sell-through, as opposed to the kind of 15 to 30% sell-through we get.
Yeah, I think that's a really key point. And one way to confirm that the incentives are there is sometimes to ask for like a opportunity or lead commit. You're willing to pay them to guarantee that they can generate a certain amount of business over a quarter, or they're paying you in some cases to have the privilege to be your reseller in a certain market. And that forces them to do the math, that forces them to make sure that everything is integrated and on by default, because they might have to clear that minimum to make it work, and that obviously requires like buy-in from the very top, which is essential for these things to work. So that's one way to make sure you don't end up with just a partner on paper and one that's actually delivering value.
But you're hitting on an important topic, because it's the channel partner that sells to the end user. And for you to drive efficiency through the channel, you need to make sure that that data is coming through back to your business.
Yes.
And the idea of a channel partner providing their data back to a company that they view could potentially go direct to their end user customer tends to be a huge issue sometimes. So I'd love to hear if there's any success stories you have to get over that perceived notion of channel conflict, maybe used to around what you've done to make it a mutually beneficial relationship in managing that end user customer data.
Yeah, it doesn't come up as much for us because again, a lot of our partners are referral partners. We're really cognizant of making sure that we know that they've referred it to us. And oftentimes, quite honestly, they don't even want a referral payment. It's not a lot of money anyway. It's more that they want to look like they're recommending the absolute best solution for their client. But we still want to know like who's giving us the most referrals so we can incentivize other ways, like sponsoring a marketing event. But for sure with like the Google and the Microsoft partners, we are very we want to make sure they're logging the leads. We don't want to step on their toes. If it happens, quite honestly, we'll defer to the partner. We're not going to get in the way there because we don't want to disrupt that relationship. I mean, it would depend. If we were like, 2 years into a deal and they came in and said, oh, this is mine. But that doesn't happen. It's normally, they are talking to them, we're talking to them. Sometimes it's different teams, especially in the Google and the Microsoft space, because they may be on the IT end and we may be on the sales end, but that's where we give them a ton of value, and that's why we get them to engage with us. We're like, look, you're only talking to these guys, we can get you engaged with these guys, and guess what? You're gonna have more budget for the project. So once you display that to them, yeah, they're making a little bit of margin on ours, but now we've helped them get a really big sale by demonstrating more value and letting the sales team get eyes on what that integration looks like. Same thing with Salesforce. When we did, it's a funny story. I said I didn't have a funny story, but I guess I kind of do have a funny story. So LinkedIn is one of our biggest accounts, and obviously now they're a Microsoft shop, but they were Gmail and Salesforce, and when they decided to make a decision around going with our Office 365 and going with Gmail, they did kind of an internal trade show for all of their salespeople to kind of take a look at the different tools and play around. And the sales team, back then we were a little bit not as mature with what we do with Microsoft. The sales team was all over Gmail just because of what we could provide, the level of integration with Salesforce and Gmail. So when that got demonstrated to the Google partner that, hey, we just helped you win this really great deal, because they did a survey and that's what came back. It was like this alarming responses around, I don't really care either way if it's Office 365 or Gmail, but I love like Salesforce, my inbox like that. So if you can kind of get that going and demonstrating that you're really helping the bigger picture, then you'll get them loving you, all day long.
So the art of the story still very much applies.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly, definitely.
Anybody else have a channel conflict story?
I mean, we spread FUD about the dangers of channel conflict because our whole thing is we don't compete with our resellers' business, and we make a big point of saying that and taking a lot of credit for us. And we have had a couple quasi-competitors stand up alternative products that have big direct businesses, and I think there's a lot of reasons that our current customers stick with us, but I think the fact that we aren't going to compete with their business and that we're 100% partner driven gives them a lot of confidence. So that certainly helps in stickiness.
I think you can avoid some of that concern if the product that you're offering, and what you mentioned is like the margin that they're getting is only a small fraction of what value they're getting out of offering your solution. So, I think about HubSpot a lot in this space, right? Where they have agencies that are offering HubSpot, right? And they're making probably a good chunk of change off of selling that and getting some portion of their couple $1,000s a month as a margin to them. But they're also now selling all the copywriting services and all of the email marketing and all the stuff that HubSpot doesn't necessarily provide into their core product, but they're an agency, they're selling all these ancillary services as an agency. And perhaps in this example, HubSpot was the path in the door or an additional 20% or whatever it was of the value that HubSpot provides. But now they're hooking this customer for all the other services. And I once heard a reseller kind of articulate it very cleanly. He said, for every $1 of margin that I get from whatever product you are selling, he's talking to an audience of SaaS companies, I need $3 of services revenue. And so that multiplier was a way that I started kind of transforming the thinking about, certainly some of these things go direct, it creates conflict, but I'm already in the door, I own that customer, and now I'm selling all this other stuff, and that's just, what you offer is a fraction of the value that you've created for me to see more.
Yeah.
And the reality too is sometimes channel conflicts are not actual business conflicts with the customer, it's more like kind of ego conflicts, and you just have to kind of just be a little bit of a counselor to the sales folks on both sides and let them see the bigger picture. And one way you can get ahead of that is just make sure that if it's going to be a high touch engagement for both companies, that the reps are in communication before the client's even in the mix, so that there's just a baseline understanding and they get to know each other, and that can often help. But if things go kind of sideways, and they do, everyone's just got to sometimes just take a step back and recognize that it's really not that big of a deal.
You gotta be flexible with the compensation too. Make sure the inside team isn't working against your channel initiative, because I've seen that happen and that's ugly. You gotta make sure that everybody feels like it's we're all in this together. We're gonna split commission, find the most equitable way to make it work, because that can get pretty bad too. Then you'll find people that are hiding information because they don't want it to
Yes.
go to a partner. So that's all gotta be managed, really well from day one.
Are you using systems and tools to do all that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that was more for previous experience with companies that I came from. I mean, we have we're not a huge team, but because most of the business is referral, and we use Salesforce, we've got visibility to everything that's going on. But yeah, I've seen that happen in the past, and I think it was mostly because people didn't really want to share the information necessarily, and a lot of times an inside person, they're going to need more senior level people on the team to help reel in a huge account. Like they got a big whale on the hook, you should probably raise your hand and say I need some help. But hey, at the end of the day, you're a salesperson, you get paid commission. So I think it's really just about taking a look at the compensation plan and making sure that it's going to be representative of what you want, and making sure if there's a channel partner involved, well, then that inside person that brought the deal should get compensated to some level or remain part of that team.
There's two things that I think folks often think about when they made a decision and they made the jump to start a channel team. What are the different skills and processes that we need in channel that's different from our business? And what's the business case on how we're going to fund this? And I'd love to talk about the skills and processes for a second. When you're setting out and you're building a channel team from scratch, are you looking outside the business or are you looking inside the business? And what skills and qualities are you looking for the first team members you bring on?
I think in general, you'd want someone with a bit of channel experience because it's totally different. I mean, selling direct to someone is all about relationships and you're working with them directly. Channel partners, it's a little bit different. You're almost going to have to come up with a plan, a really well executed plan, an agreement of sorts, and some sort of a way to make it super easy. I mean, I'm one person and we have a lot of partners, so I have to have a ton of automation around what we do. And some of the things that we do is we create a custom branded page for our partners so they can very easily send their clients there, and the referral codes and everything are all synced up in Salesforce. We have real automated processes for them to reach out and engage with us. I do kind of like a monthly touch point with them. So you're going to want somebody that kind of understands that it's a bit more like a relationship building with that channel rather than direct sales. But then again, you are going to probably have to support them on a big deal. They're going to need you to maybe come out and do the dog and pony because they're not going to be the expert too. So again, my story is probably a lot different from other people on the panel since we all have such different products.
Yeah, I mean, so actually just, a fellow just joined my team, and he's an internal candidate, and we like to bring people up internally.
It's good though,
Yeah. I think it's really valuable to have experience in direct sales to be effective in partnerships, because you need to understand really what's going to incentivize everybody to be successful, and you need credibility with the sales team as well to actually bring deals and partners into the conversation that are going to actually help them. So to understand where they're coming from is pretty essential. But to your point, it's kind of like you have to be half salesperson, half almost like account manager, but you're managing a partner rather than a customer. So you need to have kind of strong relationship skills as well. It's not quite as transactional as maybe a direct sales role would be. So there's a lot of demand in it, and it's an interesting role. And if you're interested in it, I'm happy to.
Excellent.
I think sometimes sales folks that are kind of have been compensated with commission structures and are hungry and constantly seeking kind of the transactional quick pace of the deal don't always align as well with the long-term nature of partnerships, especially when you're essentially building out the first toolkit to do partnerships. So I find sometimes that disconnect is important to recognize when, you're two things really. From an individual personnel standpoint, hiring someone that understands that it will take time to identify, sign, and nurture a partner such that they are starting to produce. Well, not only is that going to affect just the compensation, so your structure of compensation probably should be different than for direct sales, it's a mentality difference. And some folks might be looking for something kind of much more snappy. And then organizationally, again, going back to the point from earlier in the conversation, is your company well aligned and structured to start focusing on partnerships? That's a question that not only focuses on, like, is your product ready, have you validated it, and things we talked about before, but do you have the right product tool set for others to sell your product? So if you're only selling direct and a client, let's just say, goes in, logs in, sets up their account, and gets access to whatever your product is, what if you're selling to a partner who has to manage 50 accounts? Do they have to log in for each one individually, or have you built out that way for them to seamlessly manage all of their clients inside your tool? And those are sometimes product developments that need to happen before you can effectively, or as effectively as you might want, establish those kind of partner channels. So I think it's two ways to think about it, organizationally and then individually, who's in the role. That's going to be important to starting successfully.
I think you also want to overweight someone's fit for the industry they're going after, and who the channel partners are going to have, and the way that dynamic goes. And then, I mean, you want to make sure that they're compatible with your company more broadly, but if you're going to have to pick, you'd rather want to more skewed like your customers than like your people or whatever. And that, I mean, like, our universe is pretty defined. There's 1,200 companies, 50 that are big enough to matter that we're going after as channel partners. And so there's huge value in someone that's sold to those customers with completely different products, different solutions. They can learn mobile, they can learn software as a service business models. Like, you can teach someone that within 3, 6, 12 months, but if they're used to understanding how those buyers think, they have an existing relationship, they have a network they can rely on to get connected into those people, it makes such a difference. Relationships still matter, and so for our channel sales team, people that have a Rolodex and that put a ton of value into building, expanding, and maintaining that makes a huge difference. And so the amount of time we all spend doing favors for others in the industry to expand our own kind of like social capital within the industry is meaningful. And so we've hired people that also believe in that and kind of do it innately with huge, great results.
So, fascinating discussion, right? We talked about signals of when you might be ready for channel, and it sounds like product fit and economics are huge drivers of that. Sounds like culture fit is hugely important both inside your business, but also with the channel partners and end customers that you're dealing with, and equipping them, the channel partners themselves, to educate on why you might be a better solution for them managing that preference. And if you can do those three things, it's a scalable and repeatable process for a channel program. We want to open up to questions. He's got his hand up already. We'll do a couple minutes of Q&A. We've got about 15 minutes of Q&A.
Thank you. I think you guys touched on a lot of the potential answers. If you were to be dropped into a company earning between $1 million and $10 million a year as the first head of partnerships, what are the one or two things you'd look out for? What are the one or two things you'd want to do going into the scenario, knowing that this sale is totally different from a direct sale? And I say this knowing that trying to create that next channel, extremely challenging. So I think we touched on a bunch of it, but what would you do if you're given that scenario?
You go first. I think I would take a look at other competitive products in that particular product's industry and what is their go-to-market? Do they have partner channels? Like, would it even make sense, right? I mean, if that's not the way those products are sold, then maybe you don't do it. It would be a good place to start. Take a look at how those other products that are competitive in nature, how they're delivered, and then that would probably be the first place that I would start. Do a little research there. Talk to companies. You know, one of the things we didn't touch on. Sometimes you'll run in, and I know this has happened to us. People can't buy direct from us. It's just not the way they're structured. So they'll say, well, I only buy from SHI. And it's like, great, we don't have a partnership with SHI. So you kind of have to know about like who are the big distributors in the space too, and maybe start getting some relationships with them early on so that you don't find yourself in a situation where you've got someone that's like, I want to buy, but I can't buy directly from you. So that would probably be what I would do if I had to go in blind.
I would, before kind of parachuting into a situation like that, I'd want to try to validate as much of the questions we've asked before about whether that company's ready for channel. Do they have, can we identify who, from a partner standpoint, would give a shit about the product, the service that we offer, such that they would be interested in offering it, and, you know, being a channel partner for us. And if that answer isn't clear, or there's not enough companies that we can put in that bucket, that would be a bit of a red flag. Yeah, I think that's probably the way that I have interpreted kind of my career path a lot, and have also made some of those mistakes, realizing, shit, I'm in a place where we weren't ready for that.
Yeah, I can agree 1,000%.
Yeah, I mean, your customers are going to be those channel partners, not the end users. And so the more you can understand those customers, and maybe there's a couple different segments or groups or different ones are differently, like, but you probably already, I mean, the company already probably has some hypotheses, I would guess at that point, around like, this could be an attractive channel to explore. Or like, these people probably could help us. Maybe they've probably already had some inbound inquiries. So you have something to work with. But really try to understand those people as customers and what motivates them and what their needs are, and focus on solving that problem. And hopefully the solution is broadly related to the core product of the company that they're selling directly. If it's not, probably don't focus on that channel unless you have the resources to build a solution there, and like focus on a different customer segment or distribution channel like that you can use. So I would get really smart about just that customer intimacy of understanding the channel partner. How big are they, how formidable, what motivates them, what are, you know, one of my favorite questions asked in sales discussions with like a VP of product or whatever, a potential buyer is like, how do I help you get a bigger bonus this year? Like, what are your KPIs right now? Like, what are your strategic priorities? And because at a large company, if you can't attach yourself to one of their 3 strategic priorities of the year, contract's probably not getting done.
My question is, how have you resolved a situation where your channel is not selling at the pace that you need to sell to get your market share in time?
Sometimes it's just not working out, and you have to part ways. I think we can all sometimes make the mistake of doing like kind of a top-down assumption of what the potential might be with a customer. We always are like, oh, this company has 10,000 customers, and if I just get 5%, well, I'll do the math, and all of a sudden I'm going to be making a ton of money. Well, it's like, can I get to one win with this customer? And if I can't even get to like one single win, like what does that actual win look like? Not like the theoretical win, but like how long did it take? Who had to be involved? What do we have to build to get it done? And going through that process will make it pretty clear really early on whether it's worth continuing to invest in that partner.
And just, yeah, spending a lot of time. I mean, we have Logan on our team who's here. It's like his whole job is to be with our reseller customers, because their sales teams turn over a lot, and so running trainings, or just because you do a webinar on launch day does not mean every frontline sales rep of that company understands your product and knows that it exists, let alone when and how to sell it. And so continually running those kind of trainings, education, we're always sniffing around for, it's rare that we get an exclusive contract, and we're usually displacing a prior vendor. And so there's a lot of people that still are selling the old vendor's product. And so we're just always, and we play a little bit of a long game there. We're not, like, we don't get angry if 30 days in, there's still some people selling some of the other products, but as we start to build that trust and get a process down where people have, gotten deals done and it becomes more repeatable, we're always sniffing for, are there still segments that are selling the old vendor's product, and we graciously offer to do trainings, and, we're happy to come in and buy pizzas for the sales team and run a training or something like that. So
There's maybe like in my mind, a 3-step diagnostic process to kind of figure out why that's happening. And the first is, if there's, let's say many partners, but one is not performing, maybe it's the point Derek's making around engaging with that partner, sales team turnover, or some other point solution that can fix that partner. Another thought would be if no one is performing, perhaps it's one of 2 paths. Either there's some systemic gap in your product isn't fit for them to be able to sell it effectively, the economics, the margins, etc. aren't structured right, and then something else that you can fix because the interest is there. Or the third potential path, unfortunately, is it's not a product or a company that's going to be successful with channel right now, and therefore you have to kind of take that honest view of whether or not we are ready and have position ourselves to be successful in channel. Maybe that's something else to solve.
Yeah, and that's why I go back to why I think it's so important to really focus on the direct sale and how you can help with the direct sale at the beginning, because you're going to get inbound interest from of customers in other markets that you're not focused on, and that already kind of like helps you validate that there might be some real demand there. And then you can start exploring whether it's more efficient to work with a channel partner to reach those customers. But you at least know there's something real there. It's not just pure theory.
One observation, none of us said cut the price.
Yeah.
That's not, like, that is rarely the reason that something's not getting sold through.
Yeah.
It's like channel sales is super complicated. You have a lot of different people involved with different incentives that are rarely totally aligned. Cutting your own margins is rarely the answer that solves that, or never.
Yeah.
So as part of our channel sales strategy, we actually dedicate a portion of our time to reaching out to individual influencers.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to know if you guys have experience with that.
Yeah, that's huge. We didn't touch on that.
Yeah,
I feel
I
like
think that's a big
get
one.
get someone who's an advocate at, just even if it's just one person to start that's really like, oh, I love this app and they're great and Serious Insight, they come out and they do this. Because, again, if you get that one person that just keeps telling that message to everybody on the team and they can say like, they really helped me with this and I wouldn't have gotten this deal if it weren't for them. Those are if you have limited bandwidth, like I think it's really key to kind of know who your key influencers are within the different partner channels and leverage them. Like I'll do shout outs, I'll let them do blog posts. Like we were even thinking about coming up, like Salesforce has an MVP program themselves. We're thinking about doing the same thing and having like, are these people that are mentioning us and talking us up, like we'll give them kind of the MVP experience where we'll, treat them with a VIP pass at Dreamforce or whatever that might be, so that we're kind of encouraging that process. So, hey, I want to be an MVP like so-and-so, because look what, she got this great trip, and Serious Insights gave her a hoodie and whatever.
We pitched that as part of the, one of the benefits of being in our partner program is, we'll do one joint marketing event a year, and it's an opportunity for the partner to demonstrate thought leadership and reach some of our customers. So it could be a big event, it could be a small event like a lunch and learn where we just bring potential customers in and discuss a topic that the partner is an expert on, and the customer gets some value out of it. We're not really doing any direct selling to the customer, so they appreciate that, and the partner gets to shine. So it's another way that you can engage them on that front.
And I mean, we don't have a lot of, our buyers aren't really on Twitter, they don't do the social. So we get a lot of mileage out of our industry's trade association. And so, if there's a trade association that your channel partners or buyers belong to, find a way to get embedded there and active in it, because we get so much mileage out of volunteering with that organization. I mean, even like out of the gates, it was, here's like the list of all the member companies, and like, yeah, half of those are potential buyers. So there was like a lead list just to even start with. But then, like, since we've gotten embedded in the organization, and it gives us a lot of credibility, serving on committees with other potential buyers, or I now head up the Mobile Payments Council for our industry association, and so it allows me to have basically like fake gravitas when I'm pitching a customer that like, we're so impressive that like I chair this council for like a trade association. That stuff actually resonates with our buyers.
Yeah, sure.
2 questions about timing. When in your evolution did you move into, your first channel partnership? And how much time should you give one to see if it's a yay, nay? In other words, when do you?
So I think in terms of like revenue, you can, I don't know, maybe the 5-10 million mark to start thinking about maybe referral partners. I'd be very hesitant to have any like true resellers until you're like well past the 10 million mark, just because you really need to understand like your core market. But I don't know, that's kind of what's worked for me at least in the past.
I'd say from a timing standpoint, to your second part of your question about how long do you need to give it, I've heard before, and I also agree with the idea of like 18 months to 2 years is essentially the minimum time investment before you can really say, we've done all we can do to establish our relationships with potential partners, to give them the training and tools they need to start establishing relationships with their customers, to start selling and seeing a meaningful return on that investment. So it's an investment in building out a channel program that you can't really judge after 6 months.
And we had a slightly different experience, because for us it wasn't channel to get another 20% of sales, 2 years forward, it's like we are now channel. So it was within about 6 or 9 months for us. And ultimately what it came down to is we had raised our seed round, built out product, And I knew, you know, we needed to get to X level to get like another round of funding done, or to turn profitable. We had no real plans to turn profitable at that time. And so we were dealing with a lot of customers that were like, if things went really well, they would deploy to like 10 or 20 end users, serving developers. And I knew for us to have a scalable enterprise business, we needed to have multiple reference customers that had thousands of end users. And it was basically, so I knew like for us to survive, we had 6 or 12 months to land some of those 1,000 end user customers. And I just remember like being in the office with that one guy that was like, I just want to like sell your app because it's like the app we have is bad. And I was doing like the probabilities in my head that we can either stay with this developer focused strategy and probably not going to get to that like reference customer that deploys to 1,000 end users, or I build what like this old man is like asking for, and like that probably has at least a 1/3 chance of working out. And then later got a much higher conviction level, went to our board and like, I think we need to build what this channel wants. And so that's what kind of pushed us 100% reseller. But it was honestly survival instincts of knowing I didn't need to grow our business 20%. I needed to grow it, you know, 10x or 100x, and how am I going to be able to do that, and banked on the channel, and it ended up, with hindsight, being the right move.
We can do like one or two more. You've had your hand up for a while.
No, okay. This is for the panel. So as an avid reader to improve my professional development, are there 1 or 2 books that's been very influential or impactful for your current sales career? And why?
I like to read, I've read Mark Benioff's book just because I like the history of like how, since we're so involved with Salesforce, how that was found. I think it's interesting to whatever whatever technology you're trying to attach your product to, that you really know that ecosystem and the way that, what their kind of tenets are of the way that that business is run. So I think just kind of knowing what books are out there that can get you a bit more educated on the values and on the culture of what you're trying to get yourself into, and what that ecosystem looks like.
My attention span is not good enough. But there's a blog I like called SaaStr, if you're in the SaaS space.
That's a good blog.
It's kind of changing around to be like this event business. It's kind of hard to find the new
SaaStr?
SaaStr's great.
Yeah, SaaStr's great.
SAASTR. The guy behind it is Jason Lemkin.
Shameless plug, but I've done a fair amount of writing about the subject of business development, and accordingly a lot of stuff around partnerships at a blog called startofthedeal.com. So I think, you know, there's a million books that I've read, everything from Never Eat Alone, which is great about just building relationships and thinking long-term about relationships, to classic negotiation books like Getting to Yes that are very much focused on kind of win-win, etc. I think there's a lot, and I absolutely agree with SaaStr, good content at Sales Hacker, etc. But I don't know that there's one book that fully encapsulates kind of the partnership and a lot of the stuff we're talking about now. I think we're all kind of writing it as we go along here.
That's true.
Yeah, and I also have too much ADD to read books. But like go to like SaaStr, and seriously, like there are so many topics that are covered there, and they're in digestible increments. But it covers everything. I mean, we're basically applying the SaaS playbook in an industry that's largely still very old school, on premise. They love to have strategic control over their technology, and then of course it ends up outdated because they're not maintaining it and stuff like that. So, found that to be a great resource.
And I'll add one for you. A lot of what the panel talked about tonight was getting in the mindset of the customer, or getting in the mindset of the channel partner. Great book about getting in the mindset of someone is All Marketers Are Liars. It's a great book. They've changed the title to All Marketers Are Storytellers, but it's a Seth Godin book, and it's about how folks tell themselves a story that they want to believe about themselves, and if you can attach yourself to that story, you can be successful in that. Folks, give it up for the panel. I'm sure